This 100% falls on me. That's what Dan Lanning said yesterday after Oregon came up just short at home. 34-37 was the final against Washington. A rivalry game. It hurts. You never want to lose to your rival. And Oregon today is hurting. And I feel for you. We picked them to win the game. We feel for you. And if you're an Oregon fan, you probably feel like your program played well enough to win in a lot of areas when you look at that football game. Here's what I would say, though. If you're Oregon today, you have nothing to hang your head about, man. And that sounds kind of cliche, but legitimately. For Oregon, they were aggressive as heck. They didn't falter from who they are as a program, being the aggressor, being the hammer, not the nail. Like, there was nothing about Oregon that was just kind of hoping to win yesterday. They were aggressive, and a couple of those aggressive plays didn't swing their way. Maybe you play that game 10 times, and if those games swing your way, or excuse me, those plays swing your way, rather, I think Oregon probably ends up being on the right side of a lot of those. And so this isn't to make light of a loss, but if the onside kick goes your way, if you convert on that fourth down from your own 35 at the end of the game, and quite frankly, if you don't fumble the ball inside the 5-yard line when you're down 10-3, maybe we're having a different kind of video that we're doing right now. But I would commend Oregon for this. As a program, when you're ranked number 6 like they were in the college football playoffs, and you're coming back home and you're playing a good Washington team who's your rival, there's a lot at stake for you. Everyone's talking about this, that, and the other for the postseason being in the playoff, and it's very easy to get timid and to be a little bit light-footed with how you step around and just, like I said, hoping to win the game. There was no hoping yesterday. They went after it as best they could, and they came up short, just the way it goes sometimes. Defensively, you're still a work in progress, and I think that's evident. We knew coming into this game the secondary would have their work cut out for them, and the secondary for Oregon statistically has been a unit that has struggled. And credit Michael Penix, he played a really good football game. They threw for 400 yards. There were plays to be made, came to the moment of truth. Again, maybe on a different day you make them, yesterday you didn't, and that's just kind of the way that this thing swung. Evidently, it's still a work in progress. The good news for Oregon, Dan Lanning, a defensive guy, that's why you brought him here, to keep that edge, to make sure that your defensive side of the ball is going to be really strong for years to come. We're going to touch on that more in a second, but if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Would love to have you along for the ride. A lot of the Oregon faithful already have. If you have, thank you. If you haven't yet, jump on in. The water's fine. We have a real good time here. Also, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at JDPakel. Getting back to the point at hand, the defense is going to be better in the future. Dan Lanning did not ever allow this program to go into being the hunted. They were always the hunter yesterday. And some of those plays were aggressive on defense, going for the ball in the air. He said, we're going to have to coach that up better. We're going to have to be better in the future. Things that today aren't novel analysis. Hindsight is 20/20, but you give Dan Lanning a lot of credit for the way that he, what am I trying to say? The composure he showed in that press conference, the way that he carried himself. Not easy to do after a loss. After a loss in that kind of fashion, just said, it's all on me. I take 100% of the blame. We're going to be better in the future. And to be frank, I believe Oregon will be better in the future. And again, this is not to make light of any kind of loss. We don't do moral victories. But like I said, in a lot of areas, you played well enough to win the football game. Oregon ran for 312 yards. You don't lose many games running for 300 yards, folks. And that's an edge, and that's a toughness, and that's what they're going to be going forward. Oregon right now is in year 1 under Dan Lanning. The very first year. This guy's never been a head coach before. It's his very first time doing this, and they're in the position they're in, and they're playing with the edge they're playing with. They're still building this thing up internally. Dan Lanning's from that Kirby Smart tree. He understands the external is going to take care of itself when you build up the internal, and they're still continuing to do that. And we've seen some really positive ROI to this point in the year for Oregon. We're going to see more positive ROI, I believe, as this season wears on, as they potentially play for a Pac-12 title if they handle business. We're going to see that. But he's focused on what they're doing internally, and they never wavered from what they're trying to build internally yesterday. And for Oregon fans, that's a good sign. That means you got a guy at the helm of your program that isn't afraid to trust his process and trust what he's instilled. There was no faltering yesterday from Oregon in terms of how they approached that thing. They played that game the same way that they played the multitude of other programs they played, against Colorado. Like, did they execute as well as they wanted to? No. But you hear what I'm saying here. The direction of this team is the same. The identity is the same. So let's reframe this whole thing. Picture we're having a conversation, and it's before the season even begins. It's August. And I tell you, you can either have your expectations of what this season will be, or you can have the following: 6-1 in conference play, controlling your own destiny. You can have your quarterback in the Heisman conversation, and you can have Utah and Oregon State left on your schedule. Meanwhile, this is probably the thought process going into the season. So here's what I'm guessing the expectations were if I'm gauging them correctly for you as an Oregon fan. Over-under in Vegas is 8.5 wins, all right? You have a quarterback coming to your program from an SEC. That's, really good football they're playing over there, but he's been streaky. Sometimes you got good Bo, sometimes you got bad Bo. The first-time head coach, and you're in a conference where a lot of these teams around you within your conference, that they're primed to do some good things. UCLA, they've been ramping up to a year like this. Utah, experience in spades. They've known who they are for the last 2 years. There's no guessing with them. USC, tons of talent acquired in the portal. Really good head coach in terms of what he draws up offensively. You have that, or you have what I just named for you in terms of what you could achieve. I have a hard time believing you wouldn't take that situation that I mentioned for you as the reality in a heartbeat in August. Oregon's going to be just fine. And like I said, they control their own destiny as far as the Pac-12 title goes, something they did not achieve last year. You know it and I know it. Kind of the way that this thing goes for them. So for Oregon, they're excited about what's ahead of them. They're excited about what's in front of them. There's a lot of good things for them going forward. I promise you, that Pac-12 title, it's how it went last year. They got different plans this coming year. All right? They're very, very much looking forward to getting that crown back. For Dan Lanning and the rest of this program, the future is still very much bright. They're going to recruit effectively. They're going to build this thing. And it feels like to me with Dan Lanning's acumen, with his culture he's implementing, with the recruiting that they've already begun to do. Remember, Dante Moore is coming to campus in not too distant future. And the resources they have, it feels to me a whole lot like they're building an SEC-esque program in terms of, like I said, resources, toughness, edge, culture, except it's in the Pac-12. I promise you, what they're building will travel from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, to Los Angeles, California, to Big Ten country. All right? If they can perfect what they're trying to build, we're going to be a force for years to come. So, in the years to come, are you thinking about this game? I think maybe you're thinking about it only in the sense that, wow, that was one of the fork-in-the-road moments for our program. We responded to adversity, finished the year strong, got some hardware. That's the plan for you if you're Oregon. All right? I'll leave it at that. I'm JD Piquel. This has been The Hard Count. We appreciate you tuning in. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. We'd love to have you. Nick Brake does the real heavy lifting, but you can help drive this whole operation. Like I already mentioned, follow me on my socials at JD Piquel on Twitter and Instagram. We're going to keep the party rolling, and we will see y'all next time. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.